Howard, I wanted to ask you something. How did you end up in Memphis?
Oh,
You're growing up in Miami and you're watching Dusty Rhodes and stuff. How did Memphis come into the
okay.
equation?
Well, this is when I actually was a friend of Pete Letterberg. Not that I'm not. I wish you all the best, Pete.
Nice.
No, I'm serious. I do. I'm old. I bear no grudges to anybody. He called me out when he didn't need to. I retorted. It's over to me. I have no reason to be friends with certain people, even though they want a Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin reunion. Sometimes it's best to just walk away and say, okay, I don't care. Anywho, God, you guys are getting a lot. You guys are getting a lot out of me today. I gotta admit. It's what happened since I quit therapy. It all comes out. So, okay. So I owe Pete Letterberg a tremendous debt of thanks after saying all that. He was my unofficial big brother in wrestling. He introduced me to various promotions. He was an avid tape and picture collector. He showed me his voluminous collections and stuff and got me into a whole bunch of underground stuff and tape traders. And he was part of that old guard of names that you would see in the back pages of fanzines and magazines like Pete Letterberg, Barry Rose, Paul Abenante, all these names that you would see of the people who became the fans, the background network of all these, of what became the internet smarts and blah, blah, blah. So Pete Letterberg had always been a member of the WFIA when it was in its full glory, run by the great Don Wilson, the Robert Mitchum of professional wrestling, and Dave Drayson. That's when I was first aware of them, and we went to a taping in Memphis. Pete drove me up there. I was 17, and we went to a taping in Memphis in '83, and Don Wilson and Dave Brzezinski were representing the WFIA as the two leaders of it at the time, and they did an angle where it was the Fabulous Ones and the Grapplers, but somehow those two guys got involved in it, and they got beaten down by the Grapplers, and it was kind of a tradition that every year the WFIA would go to Memphis. They had been there a couple times. I don't really know what their whole circuit was, but I know they were in Memphis a couple times, and it was kind of like a tradition because Memphis is so fly by the seat of your pants that I've literally seen Jerry Lawler come up with something and tell Dutch Mantell, and then Dutch Mantell went and said it on TV. I was literally in the back room where they did that, at the desk. They take the news desk and they put it backstage at the Memphis TV studio. Right. And that's where all the guys hang out and get dressed. So the news desk is there, and that's the dressing room right behind the curtain that you see. So Lawler and Mantell are there. And anyway, I digress, but King gave Mantell something funny to say, and he went out and said it. So what happened was, in 1984, and I was a mere pawn in this. I was only involved because I was friends with Pete. Pete saw an opportunity to take over the WFIA from Don Wilson and Dave Brzezinski. And I'm 17, 18 now. And Pete's the big macher in the wrestling world, so I'm like, okay, fine. I just wanted to hang out in Memphis again. Don Wilson was buying a 17-year-old me Wild Turkey and Cokes. I was getting so drunk, I was breaking the glass every time I put it down. Oh, it was the beginning of such a glorious period. Because when you're young, everything you see, you have the whole world in front of you. And I'm in Memphis, and we're in the same room as Jerry Lawler and Man Mountain Link and all this stuff. And Jimmy Hart, oh, he's so classic. All the Memphis guys are so great in real life. Lance, Jimmy Hart, Jerry Lawler, Eddie Gilbert. They're all exactly what you would think they are. And I knew Eddie Gilbert when he was okay. I didn't know him when he had a bad rep or anything. He was great when I knew him. And so what had happened was, during the interim, Pete is for some reason, Don and Dave are not going to do the WFIA. Why don't we take it over? And let's put out a half-assed newsletter and a bulletin and the basic requirements, and then we can go hang out in Memphis again.
Sure.
Hence, we got about 18 people gathered together. We all had a great time. We convened in 1984, and now it was me and Pete as the president and vice president of the WFIA. I was out there like a deer in the headlights, and we did one of the greatest angles of all time that I had nothing to do with, the WFIA Tag Team of the Year Award.
Yep.
Tommy Rich and Eddie Gilbert, WFIA Tag Team of the Year Award. You guys can insert it. You guys can look it up on your own. I am merely an asterisk to this story, but I mean, it was so mind-blowing that it made me want to have a career both in broadcasting and wrestling just by standing out there with Lance Russell leading me through a damn angle. And believe you me, I had no idea that Tommy Rich was going to come out there and any of that was going to happen.
Yeah, I've seen this. This is awesome. This is awesome to watch. I've seen this, and this is fun. This is so much fun to watch.
Yeah, if you pro tip, the only reason that you see me over Eddie Gilbert's shoulder for a lot of this angle is because I didn't want to lose my camera time, and I made the conscious decision to step up on the riser because I looked at the monitor. And cautious viewers will see that I checked to see where I was, and I knew that I was in frame. And not being particularly smart at the time, I still gave perfect facials to Eddie Gilbert's controversial statements. From bewilderment to outright anger, I showed it all. And then when they came out and Eddie gave me the you could see it, he gives me the award, I'm like, okay, thank you. And I see Tommy Rich out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, whoa. And I backed because he punched him, and I backed up onto the riser and almost like fell, which would have really been cool. And then, but the best was before my primary memory of that was before the angle. I was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And Pete's like, don't worry about it. We got it all covered. Because Pete came up with the angle with Eddie Gilbert. Pete claims that he came up with the angle on his own and presented it to Eddie Gilbert, and they wouldn't let me know because they wanted to preserve the real reaction, which I think was the right move.
Absolutely.
And so he's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm out there like I can't even feel my body. I see these giant fill lights and everything, and we're on TV with Lance Russell, and the crowd's yelling. And I'm like, what is happening? And I hear Lance go, and WFIA Representative Pete Letterberg, you know, Mr. Calm backstage, he's like, it's just a pleasure to be here in Memphis. Pete has a spaz attack. The first thing he says after telling me how to be calm the whole time, it's just a pleasure to be here in Memphis, Lance. I'm like, this is my rock. This is the guy that was the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
So I'm mortified. And he goes, and Howard Baum, and now I have complete lockjaw. And like somebody in the crowd screaming. It gives me enough strength to like acknowledge them and go, yeah, big wrestling fans.
Yeah.
Barely I had such lockjaw. It was ridiculous. Like it was an out of body experience.
No, I can see you're like looking to him for any type of help, and you
yeah. I'm like, well, he's gonna lead me, and then he turns into a puddle in front of me on live TV. But
like, thanks for shitting the bed, bud.
I don't want to crap on Pete because,
no,
and then we did it, and then we did it again in '85, and instead of us doing the traditional WFIA does an angle, I think that the booker, what's his name, the other assassin, not Jody Hamilton, but Renesto, Tom Renesto was the booker, and his horrible son Tom Branch was working there at the time, managing Bota the Witch Doctor, and we were like, what are we going to do this year? Because it was like taken for granted. You know, they owe it to me as a 19-year-old person not in the business to have an angle. So I'm like, what are we going to do this year? And they're like, we'll let you know. And Pete kept making me ask Lance. I'm like, why am I asking Lance? I'm like, nobody. Yeah. I go up to Lance in between commercials like, hey, what are we doing? He's like, I don't. And to his credit, I mean, that didn't even get Lance mad. Greatest man in the history of the world. We are taping this on the anniversary of his death.
Never heard a bad word about him.
We're taping this on the anniversary of his death. It just happens to be. Oh, wow. And I want to tell you people that was the greatest man that I probably ever met. Definitely 1,000% through wrestling, but just what you see is what you get with him. He is 1,000% real. Greatest guy. And So in 85, guess who won the pony? Instead of us doing a reprise of our famous Rock and Roll Express impression, me and Pete were relegated to the sidelines. And who comes out and does the angle for the WFIA that year but Tom Renesto? Because I guess they saw the previous year's action. And King or Lance
on screen said, "Screw this."
And King or Lance was probably like, sorry, kid.
No dice. That's funny. I mean, like, there's certain people in this world that you're just like, no, that's just an act. Like, that's the definition of just like a man. Like, that's what Lance was. And that makes, that's all.
Who was better, Lance or Gordon?
Here's the thing. Lance for Memphis.
A tough question.
Lance for Memphis. I mean, Lance for Memphis. Come up with any analogy you want for whatever's perfect in the world. Jesus and God, whatever you want to do. Gordon in Florida, same thing. And I think Lance would have been okay in Florida, but he was perfect in Memphis because my two favorite wrestlings are 70s Florida and 80s Memphis for vastly different reasons. And Florida sold the sports aspect of it. And Gordon Soley was analytical. And he was like, this puts stress on the femoris muscles. And of course, those 22 movable vertebrae are feeling the impact. Harley Race using his head as a human battering ram now hurled from the ring. Like, he would be so technical.
Yeah.
And he would actually allow the wrestlers to put him in holds. And he would explain the scientific and psychological basis for everything that was happening. And Lance, on the other hand, the reason I love Memphis wrestling, it was a colorful cartoon come to life. Mm-hmm. And for that logic and for that market, Lance was the best because Gordon Soley can't stand out there when Jerry Lawler is going to wrestle the Frankenstein or like the Bruise Brothers are going to eat a can of dog food. It would be funny, but it wouldn't be the same. Yeah. But you got Lance and Jimmy Hart to take something so ridiculous like that and make it great. When I saw that stuff in 83, it's literally what I saw. The Bruise Brothers against maybe the Fabs or Coco and somebody in a Loser Eats Dog Food, and they made Mad Dog eat a dog food. Bobby Eaton, I think, was involved in that. And somebody had to eat the dog food, and it was really Dinty Moore, but they changed the label on it. I don't know which is worse. They're both inedible to me. But when you have Lance putting something over like that, and it's so much different than Soley would do it. And then, I mean, if you had a serious Dusty Rhodes King Curtis angle, I think Gordon could get that much better across than Lance. So
Lance would try to reason with you, like when Terry Funk. Oh, come on now, Terry. Don't use that kind of language around here. Come on, Terry.
The ultimate straight man, and like was gonna get it at
I love that because he's like, it's like in Memphis, the kind of thing was like they all know each other. Like they all know each other and they all hate each other and they all have their role. Like Lance treats King a certain way and King treats Hart a certain way and Lance treats Hart a certain way. And like Lance has to put up with him, but he doesn't like him. But he doesn't come out outwardly bitter to Jimmy Hart ever. He's like, well, here it is. I guess we got to talk to him. Mm-hmm. And because those three guys maintained such heat and everything for like a 5-year run or whatever they had, and Jimmy Hart could go on Jerry Lawler's show and it would never get old. And Lawler would say like, well, I don't really like this guy, but we're going to have him on. And then it would never get old. And it was just, they would acknowledge, he's like, King, I hate you, but I have to come on your show and tell you something, baby. And it's like, they all hate each other, but the people believe they all hate each other. And it was all you needed was those guys. And so they packed so much entertainment and comedy into it because Bill Dundee would be feuding with Lawler and Lawler would be like insult Dundee's height or something, which you knew was a shoot, Right. And it would be like, you knew they didn't like each other. So it's a whole different scheme than Florida, really. So I give it a tie. I honestly give it a tie.
Okay. I mean, and when you say it too, it's like it's a completely different style of wrestling in a way. You have to have the right person for announcing for it. Yeah, because Gordon Soley was way more technical. I mean, because he did sports previously, right? Like he did something else before he did wrestling.
I believe he did auto racing.
Stock car racing. I just looked it up. Yeah, because I know, because Lance was just like he was working at the news station. He was just a news.
Well, Lance was a sports reporter in Jackson, Tennessee, where he got his start. And he used to do something that a lot of the old timers did, which was he would fake announce a baseball game that he wasn't even watching. They would get like the whatever it was called at the time, the tintype, like the update on the scores or whatever. But he would just say, "Oh, it's a pop fly," whatever. He would make it up, and it would air. And that's how Lance got into it, kind of doing wrestling before wrestling.
Right.
But he was
jazzing it up. That's awesome.
Like, I'm not completely familiar with his early career, but I know it was news, sports, Jackson, radio and TV. Then he moved to Memphis. And, so yeah, the thing about Lance was he was more of a broadcaster than a wrestling personality.
Yeah. Right.
And I consider Gordon in that category too. And you could say, oh, it's so easy to say who's the best, Lance or Gordon. But think about it. Who can you even put in their category anywhere close to them? A lot of people might say Jim Ross, and I give him his kudos, especially for his preparation. I'm a big believer in preparation. Today's show notwithstanding.
But we just told you you're gonna have a conversation, and we're just talking.
Right.
Like what I'd say going into it, as long as we're not like at points of just like awkward pauses and we don't know what to say.
At least you made it on time as opposed to
me. I wasn't gonna tell you out, George. I was giving that one.
I'll step up. I thought it was an hour later.
That's cool. That's cool. No, me and Jake got to know each other, and everything's Jake. Hey, that's a good name for a show. If you ever do a spinoff.
Hey, that's all right. That's a good
as Gordon Soley would say, everything's August, because he was a jazz guy. He was like an old, and he would say things like, "Well, if that's August with you, sir, we'll be right back." I remember there was a contract signing, and he said that to the assassin or something.